Diddy didn't get the worst possible legal punishment today, but he certainly didn't get the most favorable result either. Earlier today, the controversial mogul received a 50-month prison sentence for his 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. That equates to just over 4 years, with an additional 3 to 4 months, a sentence that shocked some, disappointed others, and left many divided about whether justice had truly been served. The courtroom was tense as the decision was read aloud, a culmination of months of speculation, testimony, and a trial that pulled the curtain back on the darker sides of one of hip-hop's most famous and most controversial figures. His defense team, working tirelessly to craft a narrative of redemption, brought forth not only arguments about his alleged rehabilitation but also emotional testimony from his 6 children, who painted their father as a man capable of compassion, a provider, a mentor, and someone who had done countless good deeds over the years. They spoke about how their father had tried to guide them away from the same mistakes that he himself had made, how he had shown love and vulnerability behind closed doors, and how he had, in their eyes, grown past the person the world saw in headlines. These pleas, filled with visible emotion, were designed to humanize him, to remind the court and the public that beyond the headlines and scandals, there was still a father, a son, a man. But Judge Arun Subramanian wasn't moved by the defense's appeals or the heartfelt speeches from Diddy's children. His words were sharp, unwavering, and firm, resonating throughout the courtroom like a final blow that silenced any hope for leniency. "A history of good works can't wash away the record in this case," he said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "You abused these women. You used that abuse to get your way, freak-offs and hotel nights. The evidence of the abuse is massive. A significant sentence is required to deter. The court is not convinced this would not happen again." Those words not only solidified the gravity of the sentence but also carved themselves into the public's memory as a defining statement about accountability, especially when it comes to men of power who had often lived above consequence. For decades, Diddy had crafted an image of invincibility, a self-made mogul who built an empire out of music, branding, and relentless ambition. From his early days at Uptown Records to the creation of Bad Boy Entertainment, he cultivated an aura of control, wealth, and dominance. But in recent years, that aura had been overshadowed by countless allegations, stories of abuse, manipulation, coercion, and exploitation, whispered first in the corners of the industry and later screamed from headlines as women came forward. These allegations weren't fleeting rumors but rather a chorus of accounts that painted a pattern of behavior stretching over years. And now, in this courtroom, that carefully constructed empire of power collided with the weight of accountability, and no amount of charm or philanthropy could undo what had been exposed. Outside the actual allegations and evidence, what may have hurt Diddy even more in this particular sentencing was his own behavior leading up to and during court proceedings. Prosecutor Christy Slavic revealed to the court that Diddy had allegedly already been planning speaking engagements in Miami for the following week, as though the trial and sentencing were merely inconveniences to be navigated before returning to business as usual. This revelation enraged not only Slavic but the entire prosecution team, who viewed it as arrogance, as hubris of the highest order. "That is the height of hubris," Slavic declared, her voice cutting with disdain. For prosecutors, it was further proof that Diddy had not internalized the seriousness of his crimes, that he believed himself to be untouchable, still able to profit, speak, and move as though accountability were optional. Naturally, in the world of celebrity culture, where rivalries play out both on stages and on social media feeds, no one was more gleeful about the verdict than 50 Cent, Diddy's longtime nemesis. Their feud stretches back years, fueled by competition, personality clashes, and mutual disdain, and every time Diddy stumbles, 50 is there with a smirk, a joke, or a scathing post. This time was no different. "Hey," to whoever was booking Diddy for speaking engagement. "I heard he won't be able to make it," shrugging emoji, "I'm available." Grinning squinting emoji, 50 Cent posted on Instagram, mocking not only Diddy's situation but the very arrogance that prosecutors had called out in court. The post was accompanied by a courtroom sketch of Diddy crying, his face visibly twisted with emotion, his once untouchable persona stripped bare as he wept in front of strangers. The irony wasn't lost on the public. For years, Diddy had presented himself as a symbol of control, composure, and strength. To see him in tears, vulnerable and desperate, was a stark contrast to the image he had cultivated. His 7 children, who had spoken passionately about their father's better qualities, looked on equally emotional, as the man they loved was brought low by his own actions and the weight of justice. For them, the trial wasn't just about their father's past but also about their own futures, tied forever to a man whose legacy was now marred by criminal conviction and public disgrace. This sentencing, though, is unlikely to be the end of the story. For a figure as polarizing as Diddy, every development becomes another wave of conversation, debate, and controversy. Already, social media is buzzing with speculation about where he will serve his time, how he will adapt to life behind bars, and whether he will continue to fight the decision or attempt to rehabilitate his image yet again. By early next week, we are expected to learn where Diddy will be spending the next 4+ years, as his defense team prepares to return to court on Monday, October 6th, potentially to negotiate placement or discuss appeals. But in the grander sense, this case raises questions far beyond one man's downfall. It shines a light on the long-standing culture within the entertainment industry that allowed men of power to operate unchecked, shielded by wealth, influence, and fear. Diddy, once celebrated as a pioneer who changed hip-hop and reshaped celebrity culture, now becomes a cautionary tale, an example of how far someone can fall when accountability finally comes knocking. And yet, there will still be those who defend him, who argue that his legacy as a mogul, producer, and entrepreneur outweighs his sins. There will be those who point to his philanthropy, his contributions to music, his role as a father, and insist that the man is more than his crimes. But Judge Subramanian's words will remain a stark reminder: good works do not erase abuse, and power does not negate responsibility. As he begins his sentence, Diddy faces not only the loss of freedom but also the loss of control over the narrative he worked so hard to craft. In prison, there will be no curated image, no publicist to spin the story, no carefully staged moments of power. There will only be time to reflect, time to regret, time to face what has been done. And outside, in the world he once ruled, the conversations will continue, as fans, critics, and rivals debate what it all means, not only for Diddy but for an industry that has seen far too many similar stories. For now, the man once known for living life at the very top finds himself staring at the walls of accountability, with 50 months stretching out ahead of him. It is both a personal reckoning and a cultural moment, one that will reverberate far beyond the courtroom, reminding us all that even the most powerful are not immune to the consequences of their choices. Well guys, what are your thoughts? Do tell us. Thanks for watching.